All right. So we got the first game of the 2024 World Championship between Ding and Gukesh with Ding's victory. All right. So E4, E6. There's a French. Knight C3, knight F6, E5. So this is the Steinitz variation from the classical French as opposed to the Winover variation, which is really popular. So that's going with this, knight F6, E5, and we'll just discuss as we go and figure it out. So F4, this is really common. As you can see the main line, right? This is the most popular move by far. F4, C5, and that's all. That's thematic, right? In the French, white gains space, but black has to punch back really hard on the D4 pawn. Knight CE2, knight C6. So this is where Ding thought for a really long time. Let's see, he has 156 on the clock. Gukesh hasn't really used up any time. And then that's where he goes down to 129 and he finds A5, which was apparently a really good move. But it's actually, where is it? It's down on the list, but it scores pretty well for black. 27% versus 27. I mean, that's doing just about as well as anything. No, it's doing better than the other ones, really, because white's scoring pretty high. So that's interesting that he found it was saying in the article on chess.com that he kind of half remembered it, or people who half remember it mess it up or something. So I guess he had to remember it. Clearly wasn't sure. He spent like 28 minutes. And Lynn, were you going to say something?
No, no.
Okay, I thought I saw it opening up. Okay, so that's interesting. A5. Now the question is, why is A5 actually a good move, right? Well, I mean, certainly you could play a move like Queen B6. This is thematic again, going along the same vein. C5, Queen B6, Knight C6, and you're just directly attacking the D pawn with two pieces and a pawn, right? And you can take on D4, open up the C file pretty much at will, get some counterplay there. Especially useful when the knight is no longer on B1, it doesn't just get in knight C3 because then you don't have to worry about take knight C3. Otherwise, you want to take that square away from them. So white's just reinforcing the center. And obviously, the main problem is the bishop on C8. You have to unleash that bishop. We have that just like in a Slav defense. We have that problem bishop, the bad bishop. So you try and maybe get it to B5, or maybe you go, well, not B6 in this line, but sometimes you'll get a B6 in. Now, interestingly, in terms of the reasoning, let me get rid of that thing. But in terms of the reasoning for A5, you might go B6, bishop A6 now that I mention it. Usually happens with a knight still on B8. But the point is, why not trade off your bad bishop, right? Get rid of your bishop for even the knight, but probably for white's good bishop. And then we want to saddle white with the bad bishop. That's the goal. Let me get rid of this annoying this thing. Okay. So then he goes A5. Yeah, there's obviously been a ton of analysis on this since it was just played today and it's a rare move. So A5, knight F3. He just, oh, no, yeah. Then he goes straight away A4, just gaining space. And that is the main move. So he probably knew it like vaguely, and then he had to verify in his mind because it's rare. Bishop B3, Bishop B7. And you can see the computer it likes it, right? It's saying he's already equalized. So white has no edge out of the opening effectively. And this, I think, is the story of the game from what I've seen, overextension by white. I mean, it's a common idea. Sometimes if I'm playing a Caro-Kann with bishop f5, it's very similar to the French. Now you get the bishop out, right? I often like it. I like it when they play g4. I go back to d7, and then I play like a French. So the question is it a good transposition or not? I think often it is good when you provoke that g4 because it's like in a French, you don't always want an early g4, right? Keep in mind, you can smash that with h5 and a lot. He doesn't look like he did it, but in a lot of cases, you can smash with h5 and try to gain access to the f5 square because they can't go h3. You just take it and it's pinned. You'll get the rook, right? So this is dubious, I think, and you can see it's minus. So again, the computer can verify that it likes it for black. See, just a tad, but if anything, it's tilting in black's direction. So clearly nothing fantastic for white, but obviously white is being aggressive. He's going for the gusto on round one, which I can't complain about. I mean, I got to give him props for that. But so what do you think he's going for? What is the purpose of G4? Like I said, you can go H5 sometimes to break those up. But he didn't do that. But if white isn't really, you know, contested, if he's untrammeled, he'll just go ahead and do what? What do you guys think? I'll pause it for a minute while you guys think about it. We'll flip it for white. What would you do if you had white? Like, let's say it's black passes. What is that bolstering? Any ideas?
Maybe he wants to move to G5, provoking and attacking. I mean, provoking to attack if the bishop doesn't come down and take him. And if he doesn't, then I mean, maybe he won't just make some action on that side. I don't know.
Yeah, that's one way to do it. You'll see that against a Sicilian often, like a Nidor, where they get this in. There's a cool tall game where he smashes there, then he plays as a sacrifice, then he breaks through. So that's possible. What's the other way to go?
He can move that knight to E3.
G3?
G3, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. That's probably in the works. And how about somewhere else with a pawn break? Well, pawn break, really. The thing about G5 is you do weaken the light squares more, and that's really where black is strong. So you don't want to give up all the white squares, most likely. You could do it, but he's going maybe, let me see if he does it. I don't think he gets it in, but yeah, actually he does later. It's dubious apparently. But but F5. You see F5?
Right.
Yeah. F5 would be the move.
Yeah.
Very common. There's a really cool on game where it just shows how much prep he puts into that. Castles, bishop d3, all this preparation. He like doubles at least on, I think he doubles, or it's like 3 or 4 on this. Then he finally decisively plays F5. So this is a key idea. But again, I think it's like in terms of the computer, it's like, oh, it slightly favors it for black. I mean, obviously that's kind of moot, but the point is it's not necessarily super good. I think from a human perspective, I think it's beginning to overextend. And again, I'd be looking out for ways to smash at it, right? To smash that. In the meantime, but that is something to think about, the F5 idea. It's not an immediate threat, but it's just annoying. I mean, white wants to get going. But again, keep in mind, I mean, white's not fully ready. I think it's premature. And obviously, Ding is going to prove that. So queen A5, you always have to time out your breaks. Bishop G2. Interestingly, my student, we were sparring yesterday, he was really cautious about when to break, but he realized he was so fixated on it. He was so focused on doing the break, but he could have actually shifted to the other side. It was about adaptability. So for instance, maybe white really wants F5, but maybe the correct plan is just like some piece play or something, you know? So, but you reserve the option to do it. It's on tap whenever you want it. So A3, okay. This is where he's really getting a lot of play on the queen side. So he needs to distract white. Even though it's not getting after the king, I mean, kind of indirectly, but really you could just go for queenside play and say, look, if your attack's not going to work over on the king side, you're going to take on some damage and pay a price on the queen side, which will hurt you at least in the end game, maybe in the middle game too. So B3 takes B4. Okay, you start to see is really some overextension going on. So which square does this immediately weaken by playing B4? What is there are 2 squares basically that white can no longer defend just because of that move. What are those 2 squares that white can no longer defend and black's pieces can try to infiltrate?
A and C2.
Which one is it?
A3 and C3. I mean, yeah, he just moved there. So
well, those are weak. I think those are weak and you can access them partially as a result of this. That was, well, I think, yeah, A3 is in there. It's locking in because B4, B3, that's weak there, and you're sinking in there, occupying A3, looking at B2, and then A2 is also locked away. So there's that for black. Now, in addition, that's one you created yourself through the force of your willpower, your own proactive play. Now, this is the kind of move where Gukesh is lashing out with white, right? And so I get it, but it is a weakening move on every pawn moves weakening.
It is a very
especially a B pawn. Funny enough, he did both. He really took a lot of, it's crazy. He took a ton of risks this game. It's kind of fun to watch though.
I know, because he's been attacked 3 times. So why would he even think to do
that? Oh, for white to do this?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he's trying to get that tempo. He's gaining a tempo against the queen, maybe seeing if Ding is gonna, panic and sacrifice a knight or something. But this is hanging, yeah. So he buys a move, gains a tempo. Queen simply goes back. Then he takes. But you see, you're going to see, I'll take it off. I'll take it off. Now that we got past the opening, I'll take it off. Those moves on the right and home in on them. But right now, you can already see this. You can, if you see the weaknesses, you can imagine where, I'll give you a hint. It's where Black's knight, one of his knights, is going to sink in there. So again, what are the directly as a result of B4? What are the weaknesses in White's camp? Again, Lynn, you're pointing to other weaknesses, absolutely. And how about specifically because of E4? What do you see?
Well, I said A4 and
Oh, you said A4. Oh, I thought you said A. I thought you said eighth. I thought you were saying these squares in here. You said
A4 and C4.
Oh, my bad. You already said those?
I did, and then I said something else.
Oh, you said the other ones. I thought you said,
Yeah,
okay,
but
I
A4
didn't
and
catch
C4
that. Yeah,
because
absolutely. Those are the ones I'm referring to. I was thinking of
right,
those.
right.
And who's coming in? The knight. When the knight, yeah, you got it. When the knight comes in, it's already looking at those squares. So again, because of this move specifically, the knight's going to sink into C4 and pretty much just occupy an outpost. Well, you'll see. I alluded to that
That's what
earlier.
I thought he might do too. He might move his knight up to C4.
Or remember the move I mentioned it earlier where the knight ended up hopping into? We got knight to B6. Castles. There it is right away.
There it is right
Knight
there,
goes to
C4.
C4. Bishop F2. I call that the Karpov bishops. Because like I mentioned earlier when we looked at the world champion, incredibly solid player. Just tucks those bishops back, right? So bishop out to D7. Queen to E2. He's connecting his rooks, finishing his development. Now notice though, I've been kind of dissing Gukesh rather. And you notice though that he does have a strong outpost himself on D4. That's reinforced by a pawn, a knight, a bishop. Interestingly, Alpha Zero against Stockfish did something like this, ended up taking back with a pawn. Funny enough, the king ended up on E3 in that game because it was so locked in. The king could stay in the center. But you'll see similar themes in the French. You try to occupy D4. And rather than having a pawn there, he keeps a piece there. But yeah, Stockfish in the game like went A5 and Alpha Zero push. So you see some differences, some similarities to that game. If you look up that French game in 2017 or 2016, I think, between Alpha Zero and Stockfish. So you're going to see similarities in structure and so forth. And it did go G4 eventually. So, and then H5 was played, like I'm talking about, right? But you'll see a lot of similarities. Now, this D4 square is occupied, reinforced 3 times, right? So he's got that going for him. And he does have the space advantage in the center. His king is relatively, it's definitely safe on G1. I mean, he has tons of backup. He's moved the pawns. So it's almost like I'm saying, the Karpov bishops. So if Karpov ever pushes F pawn, probably you play F3 because he's very conservative. Not even F4 maybe. Whenever he goes F3, you'll see bishop E3, maybe queen up, and then the bishop will tuck back to F2. I noticed that a lot in his games. And the bishop is kind of a replacement for the pawn. It's like substituting a pawn, right? Both of them. So let's say the pawns, they kind of look like at least in terms of coverage and diagonal power, they look kind of like pawns there, although they're more powerful if they open up. So you have like 2 sets of almost quasi pawns almost, right? Those ones. So you have a lot of protection in there. You can move the king over in the corner, guarded by the bishop. Maybe use the rooks on the F and G files. We certainly got some play in the center too. And again, F5 push. Notice also that with the queen on C7, you have 3 looking at E5. So he's kind of intimidating White from pushing. Now he can always go like that and back it up more. Clearly, I mean, he went G4 for a reason. He wants to break, as you said, maybe he'll do the other stuff, but the direct idea is F5, right? And now he finally is getting that bishop in the game. Hey, maybe it goes to A4. He's eyeing that, right? Queen goes to E2, trades, brings the knight in, makes sense. And there's that move. Remember, we looked at it briefly, the article where it talked about the interesting move, knight to B2. So look, it's kind of a funny looking move. I mean, he does have a direct threat on the C pawn. It's like, it's not really going anywhere. But hey, maybe it'll wrap around there. What if you get a rook there to C8, which he actually does, and we increase the power there, and then he goes here. Queen c4. You see, I'm already liking black's position. You see the computer again likes it a tad. I like it more than just a little bit. I'm really liking his position. Again, it's double-edged because white still has prospects over here, but you're really beginning to see the consequences of those pawn pushes. He's gonna maybe face some karma there, right? With the queen on c4, aiming at a2, c3, and if you ever get a2, you got the a3 pawn ready to go. If you get c3, you're gonna win the b pawn most likely, and you're gonna undermine the knight. You might even have a push like this. What I'm curious about is what does black do with the king, right? He is like in the French, because of the lock center, you can get away with it for a while. But what is he going to do? I mean, hey, if you really have to, you can flee. It's a little sketchy, but you probably won't get hit too easily on b8. Clearly, if you go king side, it's scary. It's definitely scary. Yeah, he doesn't. No, he doesn't move 31. He waits till move 31. Again, this is still fresh from this game. So f5 is played, and again, see now you see the computer's really liking it for black, and it wants. Here's what it wants, just for context. Rook fe1, just an example. That's kind of cool because if you take it, if he takes it, it's a fork. So you can't really take it. That's pretty much a taboo on d3. Bishop f1. Okay, now it's not taboo. Now they want to take with the bishop. So takes, reroute. Karpovian bishop again. Maybe we get ready to double. Ah, look at that. Castles. There's your g5 suggestion, Lynn, happening here. And there's that bishop back. So you see a lot of these things that we're considering in certain lines. They may not happen right away, but maybe they happen 10 moves later or more. But the point is they're still intrinsically, part of the position. They're always there. There's kind of sample lines, but you always have a4 and c4, right? Those are never guarded by a pawn ever again, right? So they're always there, and it's just a matter of time. Now, this is a sample line as well, right? But you see it's embedded in inherently in the position.
So when he moved that pawn up, it really helped black to invade and have outposts on the opponent's territory.
And that's a direct result of the provocations by that a5 is going down in history for sure, because it certainly worked out well. And you're going to have a theoretical debate around it, right? Especially from world championship matches. You have big debates. Sometimes they'll continue to play the same lines. Like you see that a lot. If you look at Karpov, that's definitely one worth looking at. Tons of games, like 48 games in the first round. Karpov lost a bunch of weight, and then it continued. So they paused it because he lost a dangerous amount of weight, and then they continued on in 1985, and that's when Kasparov finally won. And some say it was biased. FIDE was like protecting, but anyway, it was unhealthy for him at that point because he was just getting like emaciated and super too much pressure, probably not eating, and just like burning a bunch of brain chess calories on your brain, I guess. But yeah, it took a toll on him. Anyway, this is probably going to be really important theoretically, and in that match, you saw a lot of the same openings. Also in Carlsen and Caruana, saw a lot of interesting Sicilians happen. I think particularly in the rapid games, but they continued their discussion, the theoretical debate in the rapid games, and like certain lines of the Sicilian with like e5 thrusts and stuff. It was very interesting. So I'm curious as to whether we're going to see more French. Who knows? Maybe Gukesh will play a French or something. So we might see a debate going on there. Maybe he'll play like e5. I'm sure you'll see some e4, e5, which is just solid. You definitely see them doing that. But hey, I mean, given the fighting play by Gukesh, he might play like a Sicilian. So we'll see. Probably, I don't know, he might shift it. I'm very curious to see which openings they play. So, but clearly he went all out and it didn't work. Okay, so queen does come in. Queen tucks back on e1. Bishop, see, look at that. This is just, it's reaching, coming to a head, right? Look at those pieces. I would not feel comfortable. Yeah, Ding, oh, I'm going to flip back again to the winner side. Ding is in his element, right? I mean, this is an obvious move, but it's the whole, it's the combination of, you see the flow of the game, right? It's a5, a4, it's the timely capture, it's the infiltration of the knight, the modest development of the bishop, and then ultimately he comes into a4, the queen gets into c4, d3 by c4. Oh, interestingly, he didn't take the pawn. We'd have to, probably because he had rook a1, yeah, he would have taken, we're not trading off the valuable, our thorn in his side on a3. We're not going to trade that off and help him out. Look at that. Now, when he castles, he can swing the other rook over, power through against c3. He can always wrap back around it. I think that c3 pawn is going to collapse. The whole queen side could look at that. Got c3, and again that guards d4. You can often like give up the rook for the two pieces. So he's got that going on. If that falls, they could fall like dominoes. And again, he could probably reroute and hit a2 as well. Who knows? Maybe he'll go from 0 to hero, right? Maybe that bishop will like get in there and end up like taking the pawn or something. I mean, I'm really liking Black's position because all his pieces are just springing forward, right? Look at his position. Okay, advance, advance. Okay, improve position to look forward. Advance, 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 advance.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
While
eight
white
advance.
is not advancing at all.
No, well, except for h4, but so what? He just
Except for
I mean,
H4.
he moves a pawn, Black moves a bishop deeper. What's that?
No, I said except for H4.
Yeah, but it's like we trade moves. You get to move a pawn forward, which doesn't do much other than attack my bishop, and my bishop comes in anyway. It's to spite you, right? So, but this is important because what you're seeing now, I mean, this is basically strategically a one. I mean, it's going to get tactical, of course,
Mm-hmm.
but again, computers getting -2. I think we can see as humans that's dominant. It's just minus over. Because say minus over plus, that means advantage Black. Not
Mm-hmm.
minus plus, not minus next to plus. That means Black's winning. Because from a human perspective, I mean, of course, anything could happen. There's some looseness of the bishop. These might fall. Maybe the queen gets trapped. Who knows what happened? Maybe these get traded off and white neutralizes pressure. Who knows what, right? Maybe the bishop. So there's still a lot of stuff that Black needs to be careful about. But I assume with perfect play, Black has a decisive advantage. But just for now, if we're going to look at the imbalances, obviously we're seeing infiltration by Black's pieces. Why don't you guys, let's actually break it down right now. That's interesting to look at. I think this is a good position to look at. So what I'm going to do is I will turn that blank. I'm going to make this blank over here. What color is that? We'll make it white. So we have a template. We have some space over here, right? You see that on the right? So now I can go ahead and type in some stuff. So what do you guys think? What are the main imbalances over here? I'll just jot it down.
For what color? Black or white?
Imbalance for both sides. So whatever you see,
Okay.
whatever you see, whatever you observe, we'll just jot it down. But it could be for either side. So what do you got? What do you guys observe? I mentioned some of them. We can recap what I just said. Well, what I said and what else do you guys see?
I see black is very strong.
Yeah, Black is strong. Yeah, and now what are so probably just advantageous, and then we'll kind of say what are the things that lead to that. And as Fisher said, tactics flow from a superior position, so we can see the superiority for sure. So what are some elements of that? That's like the headline, right? Now what are the bullet points within that underneath it? So just to reiterate,
Well,
what did I say about
white
weak squares and stuff like that?
white cannot really advance too much at all. I mean, he can move the bishops one square or one of the bishops one square, and he could slide his queen over, but I don't know what that would do.
Yeah, so basically it's like lack of mobility.
Yeah,
Ironically, because a lot of times the pawn advancing, it will give you more space. But this is a great example. Like I said, it's a great example of overextension, really a model game for that. It's very obvious what's happening, right? White's pushing pawns, creating weaknesses, Black's invading. I mean, that's self-evident, right? Black's pieces are coming in. So it's really, in a way, it's not super hard to understand this world championship level game.
no, it's not, because black is solid. He didn't push his pawns. White pushed his pawns and black pushed his pieces. So therefore black got the invasion, and now white is really constrained and have hardly nowhere to go.
Yeah, invasion of pieces. Now, of course, I mean, pawn play is good, but it has its limit. It has its pros and its cons. It's double-edged. This is an example. I mean, look, the other thing I was going to mention was that because of this, I mean, there are I don't know about benefits, potential benefits, like opening things up. The thing is that just doesn't really come to fruition, it seems. Now, I mean, White, as you'll see, White's able to create a couple of tactical ideas, but
There's not nothing.
Black just doesn't allow them.
Yeah, he won't get anything out of it because if he takes if pawn F5 was to take E6.
Right. That's one of the main considerations. Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the few. I
Probably
mean,
would take back with the
that
pawn, right?
tension that's right up there with the C, from the C, the queen, the knight, the rook, all of that. That's a lot of tension that you could work out and just liquidate some pieces there
Yeah.
if you had a strategy to checkmate it, because the king is already over in the corner. And yes, he's protected with those.
That's actually, you're foreshadowing what's to come. I think so.
Okay.
Have you seen the whole game yet or not yet?
No, I have not.
Yeah, I think you're foreshadowing what's to come. So invasion of pieces, and because of your, I'll say slash, lack of mobility, I'm gonna say slash, clear mobility. But yeah, and then what's the other thing? What else do you see? Well, basically what's responsible. I think you kind of alluded to it, but specifically just to make it obvious, what's allowing this piece invasion to occur? I think you may have alluded to it, Lynn, or anyone else.
Well, yeah, he's pushed all of his pawns, and
Yeah.
you have those spaces, all this empty space. The whole file of the third file is all, completely almost occupied and controlled by Black.
Yeah, that's the overextension you're seeing. Yeah. So, and then basically harvesting, I guess I call it, he's harvesting weak squares, exploiting them, right? Yeah, that's really what's going on. And then the only other thing is the king placement. So we have space for white, but most importantly, why do you gain space? For mobility. So it's about access too. It's not really giving white, it's giving him a little more like maneuverability. He's getting maneuverability, but Black is also holding him off. Like look at he's got light square control with the pawns. He's got dark square control with this one, actually. He's holding off these guys. Like this guy's not going anywhere. And yeah, he's got everything else covered. Again, you just have to watch out for this. But that would interestingly trade an F5 pawn for an F7 pawn, which actually gives up some space. But now we see this space in the other form in terms of access. Because again, ultimately, that's what it's about. I mentioned light squares with the pawns. Obviously, that bishop, look at that. The bishop's clearly controlling a lot of dark squares. The rook has lateral pressure. And
when that bishop is constraining all of the queen, the rook, and the bishops, and the king.
Oh, by the way, we start seeing some ideas of even taking the knight and then taking the rook. The bishop's loose though. Like that's another aspect tactically. Watch out for your loose bishop. That's about it though. As for what Black, but as for
there's nobody that can
that
attack
pawn and the rook. What's that?
At this point, David, nobody can attack the F4 bishop.
Well, the looseness is important because I was actually thinking about a line where you take the knight and then you want to get the rook, but then the bishop takes back. So you take the rook and he takes your bishop. So all you've done is knight rook for bishop rook. So that's where it can, so you have to be careful that you don't allow it to liquidate unfavorably. And it's like, whoa, white's got that nice bishop kind of stuck, but the bishop's just covering all those dark squares. And then you had this amazing bishop, which got traded off. So sometimes it's relevant, right? But currently you should be just, that would affect, that would impact your decision to like take the knight. So it would just mean that some tactical elements might not be achievable at the moment.
Also, if Black wanted to open up the left side, he could have his E6 bishop just to take the F5 bishop, and then the G4 pawn, the G4 pawn would take that pawn, and that opens up that whole side for the king, the queen.
And you're saying if we take twice and get this pawn here?
Yeah. So
they're looking at us, but we're looking at them too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if E takes F5 and then G takes F5 So you've already opened up a whole area right there.
So we have, yeah, we both have brushing on each other. Oh, although there's one caveat, which is the D5 pawn, just to note. So when you take, you abandon that, and then you just gotta watch out for that. So this bishop is really a good, I would say the good thing that white has, they have two good things. They have a good bishop. They have pretty good bishops because the bishops are offensive and the Karpovian defensiveness of it, right? So I would say bishops are, I would say, how do I say? Bishops are, let's say, I'll just say O and D because you know what I'm talking about. Offensive and defensive, right? So I like that. That's well, and the king is safe. I'll give him that.
Yeah.
And therefore, because of the largely because of the bishops. So we can argue whether the white king is safer. So the black king is a bit out there, a bit stranded. He's got like a bishop and rook kind of helping him the pawns. But you can imagine in some lines the black king can get in trouble. And that's actually what I'm talking about. You're going to see that in a little bit from my quick glance that I took earlier. I saw that, you know, Gukesh had some counter shots, but it just wasn't quite enough. It fizzled out, and then Gukesh just silence, just had to, you know, that's it. Had to throw in the towel at that point. There's nothing more to do. Yeah, so I think that's pretty good, right? Flushed it
Yeah.
out. Do you guys see anything else before we move forward? A lot of stuff in there, but I'm gonna erase that. But just in terms of on the right, do you guys see any other key points? Solidity for white, for black, not so much for white. Black's pieces are invading because of the weak squares. And you have the A3 pawn, space advantage on the queen side, potential passed pawn. That's a huge asset because if you win the A pawn, get it scot-free, boom, got the A pawn coming in, and you could win just based on that. At least it could be a decoy too, be a distraction. White has to deal with it. Well, black's already, you know, like I said, they're harvesting all these squares. Well, you gotta deal with those bishops. But hey, you can, like you said, Lynn, maybe later on you use your bishop, trade it off, and then suddenly you get all this access to dark squares. G4 is loose, F5 is loose, rook is loose, E pawn's loose. I mean, again, when you add it up strategically and tactically, black is pretty much winning. You know, it's bad. Okay, any other thoughts? I think that's pretty good though. We have the context.
One thought I was thinking that A5, when it moved, look where it got you now, you know, and that's a strategic pawn placement at this point, you know.
It's all, yeah, it's all attributable to that earlier. I mean, really, let's just review. Well, we can review later, but just quickly to see the flow of the game. But this is really important because whatever else happens now, it's based on this position, just some tactical stuff. But you're not going to get those cool tactics often, or that necessarily favor you, without getting that superior position. You might get lucky. It might be a free for all, but here you're trying to lock it down, right? Only thing I want is that rook in the game. I want to make sure my king stays safe. I desperately want my rook to join. But interestingly, I mean, just with these guys, oh, remember, bishop A4, right? I think we foreshadowed, I think we briefly saw that. You got bishop A4, boom. Yeah, it's overwhelming. And oh, wait, I'm just curious, how many advances did he make in a row? Right, okay, he went back with the queen. There was an advance there and there, right, with the pawns. Went back. Then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, attacking move. 6, maybe 5.5. 6.5, 7.5, 8.5, 9.5, 10.5, 11. Take back, fine. 12 forward, still forward. Okay, and then he goes back to win a pawn. But every move he's doing something aggressive. Pretty amazing, right? Just like that's now that. All right, Lynn, thanks for your contribution.
And that's how you win games, David. Every move gotta be aggressive and moving forward. I mean, you may have to go back.
If you can, yeah, I've had some fun games like that too. I looked up like nice.
But at this
just keep advancing.
At this championship level, I'm quite surprised to see it like this, how Ding allowed to invade at this level, but it happens.
Yeah, I mean, this is the direct result of the you know, risk reward, right? He was hoping to crush Ding, and he was in for a rude awakening. He had a rude awakening. But that's gonna be interesting because that's the context for the rest of the match. You know, Ding's gonna have to adjust his play. Yeah, see you, Lynn. Ding's gonna have to adjust his play going forward. I mean, but the thing is, what if he had won this game by going all out, like this swashbuckling kind of play? If he had won, it would have been completely different psychologically, especially because Ding is having a rough time. Maybe, you know, he completely I mean, look, it wasn't like everything he did was terrible, but still, he took a lot of risks, and it definitely backfired on him. And now we have this kind of, and that's why Black gets to keep advancing. Oh, by the way, new imbalance, 2 connected past pawns. Also, we're aiming into H2. Our knight can swarm around. We can probably, yeah, that's where, what move are we on? Okay, I'll get rid of that now. We are on move. Let's see, I'll just press the erase button. Okay. We are on 28. See, he's going to castle on move 31. Interestingly, he takes that. I mean, he gets a fork, right? So queen takes, allowing white to have an uncontested dark square bishop. As you can see, I mean, white has good protection on the king. Well, g4's hanging, by the way, but it's not all about that, right? I mean, if black can castle, what are we at? 2, 4, 6 against 4. Black's up 2 pawns. Okay, so we have a knight for a bishop. There's your imbalance there. But the knight is pretty good. What if you go bishop in, tempo on the rook, knight wraps around, hits the bishop, take back favorably, or do other things with it. G pawn, H pawn later, castle, pressure on the file. I mean, two connected passed pawns. That itself is a winning asset. And even the A3 pawn might be a winning asset. Now, again, it's funny. The knight, interestingly, is usually not great on the 7th rank or even the 8th rank or 1st and 2nd, because its mobility is actually limited if you think about it. 4 of its 1, 2, 3, 4. You see now he has 1, 2, 3, 4 squares he can go to. So similar to be on the side, 1, 2, 3, 4. So mathematically, it only has half of the potential squares that it can reach. But hey, I mean, that might be useful even going to the back rank. But also remember, it can wrap back like to 6th rank or in their 3rd rank or 4th rank. So it can wrap back and just instill fear in the enemy camp, right? Terror in the enemy camp. Okay, so queen c2. Now that apparently is a blunder. Let's find out why. Wow, just a queen trade. Well, that's the thing, and that Lin was referring to all that, in terms of the superior placement. Black can choose to trade when it favors him, right? It's opportunistic. Trading queens, I mean, you can't do that. Probably knight. Just wrap back. Yeah, I wouldn't take with the pawn. You give him the B pawn. Don't do that. Just take with the knight. Outpost, like I said, reroute, guard everything. You're up 2 pawns. Now you can finally castle. You can just move the rook over. Your king's fine. By trading queens, you take away any threat. Because again, the white king is a little safer fundamentally. Look at that protection. Again, it's got like a bunch of pawns, quasi pawns nearby, right? Plus the extended ones. So like pretty hard to reach the king. Almost got the G pawn. Then we can break through. But in the meantime, because you've traded down for endgame safety, and we're up 2 pawns and still same issues. So it really adds up. Doesn't trade queens. There it is. Rerouting to D3. Yeah, it is an interesting one. See you, Nicole. Have a good day. See you next week if you can make it on Monday.
I'll see you next week.
Cool. Have a good one. Knight D3. Queen E3. Yeah, it's really a dominant game. It's really, I think this is it's changing the odds, right? Definitely changing the odds. There you go. And now we have to calculate this. Now this is getting crazy. See, this is the thing. I mean, Ding is the world champion for a reason. I mean, like I said, people are talking trash, but he's the world. I mean, yeah, he hasn't been performing well, but he is the world champion. I mean, he's an incredible tactician. I mean, obviously he's an amazing. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how good he is historically. He's definitely up there. I mean, you're not going to make it this far in modern chess against all these top players unless you have an incredibly deep understanding, incredible tactician. So you see, interestingly, like look at this position. When he takes the rook, he's voluntarily allowing this pin to occur, right? Now when he plays e5, but it's very concrete because he has to calculate, well, if the bishop takes, boom, you get to take with check and you're in. If they take the knight, then you can just probably, what do we do? We're probably just going to go like this. He just has to calculate, but I think he determines that, okay, those are his 2 extra pawns, right? They are doubled, but interestingly, that kind of helps, it's like even the 1 pawn is good, but the 2, it makes it so imagine the white king can never approach them. Pretty hard to approach, right? Only via here, but you're going to get your king in eventually too, get out of the way with the bishop. And he's got to worry about, oh, check this out. Here, you guys know that sacrifice idea? you hang the bishop, and if the bishop's not on b1, you get to queen,
Oh,
but you
yeah.
can't stop. So you have this immediate idea. So it doesn't really matter that, I mean, sure, I'd prefer that they're like this, but funny enough, they actually being doubled, it confers some benefits. Yeah, I would probably play like, well, first of all, I want to take the pawn, but I would probably like move my pawn out of the way of the bishop. No, actually, I would just go straight for the kill. And then, because if he, let's say he's on b1 to cover, well, if he takes h7, you're going to break through on, yeah, there it is again, a3 pawn. By the way, it's on the opposite color of the white's bishop, the white square bishop, so you don't have to worry about it anytime soon. And white is really has a crisis with this pawn. So yeah, that's why he doesn't go into the endgame. Pretty clear assessment there. So once again, like we had one chance here, has to avoid the endgame. Wait, what does it say his best move is? It says taking it, but it's giving like a more than 2-point advantage because the 2 extra pawns. So he tries to, I mean, that's bad. I think you have to try and stay in the game in the middle game. Okay, late middle game. Castles, bishop in the middle, knight in the middle, and deeper in his territory. Watch out for that g7 point, right? Can't get there yet. Take. That was a brilliant move, though. Really nice setup. We'll check the computer eval there. That's a really tricky. Wow, that's it. If you're gonna do this, you have to play e5. But I don't think, did he have to trade rooks though? No, he didn't have to trade rooks. Like he could have done it first. He did the seemingly risk. If you're gonna do this, the stakes are higher because you're about to lose your knight. I mean, you can't go there because then queen takes and that's bad. But yeah, he just calculated this again. That's what I'm saying. It's really impressive play by Ding. That's how he take. I mean, Gukesh is again one of the best in the world. Hoping to be number one. But yeah, so the fact that he just dominates him like this is really impressive. Bishop g3, bishop in. Just look at him. I just call that carving, like a snowboarder or a skier, right? He's just carving into white's position. Every move he carves in deeper. Pretty vicious. Bishop h3. Okay, now this is, I guess, the collapse. So what are we at? We're still up 2 pawns. All of our pieces are superior, right? Every single one of our pieces is better. And now actually their king, despite the bishops, is starting to become a little more exposed. Ironically, as the pieces trade off, he's more open. I mean, it makes sense, but he has, black has less attacking power, but there are fewer defenders. Queen d1, bishop invades, check, king out. There's that pawn. Best move. I mean, look, what's he going to do about it? He can literally trade. He can literally sack his knight right now. Liquidate, see? Queen and knight for a queen, right? Game over. No, not yet. My bad. Not yet. Because the bishop here. But he's going to try and get something like that. Here's the line that it gives. Best line would be here. Queen c2, but you're making way for the pawn. What does he even have? Let's say, again, he shouldn't trade. No, I mean, if he trades, it's murderous, you know. A2. Oh, you can't even go here. Take queen. Okay, you want to take the other one? I already take back. Game over. Queen for bishop and pause. Yeah. So he tries this, but he's lost. No, he's about to resign. King h8. He gives up. So let's see what. Let's try and figure this out ourselves. Why do you think he just resigned now? Some people might think it's premature, but I think the threats are insurmountable. So what's black going to do next? Let's say, I mean, white doesn't have much to do. He can make more retreats if he wants, but let's just say it's black's move. What's the threat? Pretty direct.
Oh, how about queen to g2?
That's a mate. That's a mate. Yeah. Boom. Queen g2 mate. So I don't know, like let's come up with the sample. I mean, I think the sample move is probably here. Again, I would love to do the check and trade down. Only problem tactically is that, you know, you bishop here, you can't push, you can't queen because the bishop can come back. But we don't, I mean, the thing is he's not threatening anything for a little bit. So we have like one free move. Where can we go with that queen? We want to get a queen, right? Do we have anything better? I just want to move the queen somewhere to get in. How about queen to A1 or B1? Something like this looks strong. So if the queen goes away, you have a check from behind. Let's say she goes here. Now we have this check. I mean, you have too many checks coming. Oh, and you're threatening to trade. Look, I mean, anytime you trade queens, look, you're up 2 pawns. That's a win, and you're trying to promote. The good thing is you haven't traded queens, which means the knight didn't have to move. So you leave your knight there, that takes away the bishop move. And then A2 is coming. It's giving it -10. What's the best move, it says? Yeah, queen. It's saying queen B2 is mate in 10, queen C2 mate in 13. My move that I gave, mate in 14. They're all fine. best, quickest mate. Let's see, quickest win here. Yeah, I mean, it's self-explanatory. Well, yeah, I mean, you don't get mated though. Don't want to get mated yourself. So he sacks, but it's too slow because we're already swarming. Interestingly enough, it doesn't even say there's no check right now, but you just come in. They can sack, but check it out. You take back with check. Blocks. So we come from behind the scenes. Check and boom. So I mean, you have 2 queens on the board, right? Amazing, huh?
Mm.
Well, I'm really that's interesting because I don't think anyone. Well, maybe if you're like a really big fan of Gukesh, but still, I think for the sake of excitement, it wouldn't be fun if like Ding just came in and continued this kind of losing streak. So he's coming back and showing, hey, he still wants this, I guess, and he's gonna have a good time and play some amazing games. And but yeah, clearly but it's kind of, I mean, Gukesh has the white pieces, so it makes sense. You have the first move, so usually you'll press for a win. But he really went all out. Let's see what the accuracy. I'm sure the accuracy was really high for Ding. Let's check. Yeah, significantly better accuracy. Look at the flow of the game. It blipped up a little bit. It was a little bit of a blip there where he made an inaccuracy. But besides that, very smooth. So if someone's cheating, you'll see just like a nice slope without any mess ups, right? But here you can tell, okay, this is a regular, just strong game. Went up a little bit, a couple times, but yeah, just kept going in his direction. And he kept it, White had a tiny edge in the opening, but nothing much. And then he, right here, where did it go in his favor? Starts now. So White, by overextending, that's when it really turned in his favor. What else? Here, the blip, just so you can use this as a shortcut, just to see where the blips were. It doesn't like this. Oh, interesting. This has come up a lot where it's like you're not supposed to. Oh no, you're supposed to take back, but not the obvious recapture the pawn. I think it's because he's fine giving up the bishop for the knight. That was a great knight, not such a good bishop, so totally sensible, right? So apparently it was an inaccuracy, like 110 cent upon loss from -2 to 0.9, but it's still good. He made a human move. Okay, I got the fork now. Where did it go back again? So we have this little plateau. So it's giving black an edge, but not as decisive. And then it goes back, swings really dramatically in his favor. Queen C2, a mistake. Then they have that. So I'm curious, what should he have done? Bishop in, that's annoying. Yeah, sure. Hits the queen. I mean, oh wow, it says he only had a tiny edge. I mean, practically speaking though, again, from a human perspective, why do you want to part with that pawn? You're up 2 pawns again. Bishop's pinned. I mean, I don't know. With perfect play, maybe White's hanging on, but it's definitely. And then you have to give up a second pawn if he wants. Reroute the knight. Yeah, it's still good for Black. But, I guess the idea is that White has counterplay. But as you can see, even in the end, there's some counterplay, right? There's some stuff over here. See, Bishop comes in. Still looks a little bit scary. So he's got a check. He's got 2 bishops in his territory. Fortunately, the queen doesn't come in. If the queen comes in, check and mate, right? You gotta watch out. But fortunately, there's no access yet. And if he goes away, if she goes over here, then Black's queen comes in and delivers mate on the next move. The knight covering and the bishop covering. Yeah, pretty cool game. You guys have any final thoughts on that? Any questions or final thoughts about the first game?
Has Ding been sandbagging for the last year?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like maybe it's the kind of thing where people think like, okay, I don't know. I'm sure there are bets on the game, right? So it's like his camp, whatever the odds are, 5-1 or whatever, and they're gonna get a nice payday, right? I don't know. That's just one game, but I'm sure. I mean, people bet on everything. There was a bet on which opening is gonna play, who's gonna what's the result of the first game? What's the accuracy of the, who knows? There's probably, but I'm sure there's a bets on the first game, and then obviously bets on the result of the entire match. But yeah, if he was underperforming, I guess it's gonna help whoever's betting for him. I'd be curious. Have you guys seen that? I'm sure there's a lot of betting going on.
No.
People bet on everything these days. So anyway, nice job, guys. Good analysis. I'll stop it there and looking forward to seeing round 2.